Hello.
We made it.
Good, I'm able to hear you now.
Yeah,
Are you able to hear me and see me clearly?
everything's great. And we're meeting across the ocean. So hello to you in India. I'm in Toronto. Great. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. How have you
I'm
been?
doing great. I'm ready for this conversation. Are you?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And
So, we,
lots of love to everybody who's joining in. I see La Lady there. I saw Jilly. Ruby's there. Awesome. Okay. We got a nice crowd coming in today. That's awesome.
all right, everyone, welcome to Awaken Life and thank you for joining in. We'll start with a brief introduction about what Awaken Life is, followed by Salima's introduction, and then we'll hand it over to Salima to introduce and give a small peek into her life and how it all started for her. And I'm super excited about this topic called Kundalini Yoga because I am myself a yoga practitioner for about 8 years now. So I'm even more thrilled about this whole
Okay.
concept. So, welcome everyone to Awaken Life, and so good to see some known names, some unknown names. And while we introduce, people will keep pouring in, and then maybe we can start. So, Awaken Life is a awareness movement, as Salima, we all know about it. It's a movement that we envisioned to create about 2 years back, where we wanted for people to realize that many people go through a lot of struggles in their life, that they have traumas, unhealed childhood traumas, they have depression, anxiety, and everything starts with one's mindset, how they feel in the body, how they feel in the mind, and different modalities that can actually help them heal these childhood wounds or heal their traumas, anxieties, and progress to a more spiritual life, progress to a life which is more internal rather than external, right? So there are so many beautiful techniques and modalities, the healing techniques and modalities that are available today, and people are opening up to these options. So this platform was created precisely for the same reason, where we can bring in a lot more mentors who can share their insights, can share about the techniques that they've been living by, honestly, not really just preaching, but actually living by those techniques that have helped them live a more meaningful and purposeful life, right? So, life is all about finding meaning, finding purpose, finding your own true self, connecting with yourself, and I mean that's about it. That's how simple and beautiful life can be. But when we get stuck with these, unresolved issues, either in the body or in the mind, that's when life seems to be difficult for many of us. And right now, a lot of us are going through a lot of mental issues. Yoga is one of the modality that has now risen up to people's consciousness, where they feel no, yoga can actually help them, break through these limiting beliefs, break through these traumas that are stored in the body. And there are many forms of yoga. Today, we will be talking about Kundalini Yoga, for which we have Salima today with us. She's a charismatic and impactful communicator, and she's internationally recognized and sought after leader in Kundalini Yoga and meditation. So today, we will be sharing this space with Salima. Salima, all over to you. And let's begin with a small brief about you,
Okay.
and then we
Sure.
can go into the questions.
Yeah, thank you for the introduction and also for creating this community, because I think you're absolutely right that when we have community to connect with, when we have mentors to connect with, then the path that we need to move forward in is really protected. And yeah, it just makes it a lot more supported. So I appreciate all the work that you're doing and thank you for this invitation. So where would you like to start? Because there's so many different spots we can enter
So,
in.
yeah, so a little bit about how you got into Kundalini Yoga
Okay.
and how did it kind of start for you, and what is Kundalini
Okay.
Yoga?
I have to admit that yoga for me was, when I first started, I thought it was boring. I didn't want to do it. I didn't like it. So, um, I come with that experience of it's sometimes we have to be ready for the practice. And when we are, it's that saying, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And I think that that's 100% true for my life. And I got into a car accident. I just got goosebumps. I got into a car accident, and my path to healing was, you know, I was going to the gym, I was doing all of that kind of stuff, and I wasn't able to get back to that because my body just wasn't ready. And it was actually soft movement, gentle movement, breath work, meditation that actually created this path. And in that discovery, you know, so many worlds open up. You know, I would get these amazing experiences from very simple forward fold. You know, all the insights that I needed, they came because my body was doing outside of my regular sitting at a desk and typing. You know, there was much more that I was now starting to experience because my body became the entry place for new neural pathways. I didn't know that then, but I do know that now. And so that car accident, you know, made me question my life. What am I doing here? Like you said, what's my purpose? If I've been spared and I didn't get injured in a way that I wouldn't be here anymore, but I'm here standing. What can I do? What can I have impact on? Where can I show my leadership? And it wasn't through my 9-to-5 job. I mean, I, you know, had good success there, but it was not enough to challenge me. It wasn't enough kind of impact that I wanted to have. And when I started teacher training, again, I started with this idea that I would never teach. This was for my personal development. And, you know, here I am now. So, you know, to cut a long story short, I think that when I started to see the transformation that other people were having, it became really clear to me that I couldn't just hold these teachings for myself. There was, you know, an inherent like pulse within the teachings themselves to say, get out there, use your, you know, use your skills and talents to do this. And, you know, touch wood, and it's really blossomed into something really powerful, impactful. I enjoy my work. When people say the word yoga, I'm all ears. There's almost nothing that crosses my desk or my path about yoga that I'm not curious or interested in or starting to form an opinion on. And that's been so incredibly rewarding, including all the people who have, you know, been part of the groundswell of looking for holistic practices, looking for alternatives to allopathic medicine, pharmaceuticals, and really saying, if I can create this dis-ease inside of me, then I also have the remedy. And that's a very powerful thought in and of itself. If I created this, I can undo it too. And that's where Kundalini Yoga steps in, I think.
So what is Kundalini Yoga, Salima?
Right. So Kundalini Yoga is, you know, if you research it, it's the yoga of awareness, and it is a very distinct tradition. It comes through the teachings of the Sikh faith, and so the language is Gurmukhi. Mantras are taken from Gurmukhi and the Sri Guru Granth Sahib. So it differs from Hatha Yoga quite substantially in that origin story. There are pieces of Hatha Yoga that are blended in, but this is a tradition unto itself. The idea of Kundalini, let's start there, and then it makes sense what Kundalini Yoga is. So the word Kundalini is referring to consciousness. And Kundal is the hair of the lock of the divine. So it's really the idea that the spiritual energy resides at the base of the spine. And this spiritual energy stays sleeping, stays quiet, stays, stays passive until we encounter ways to awaken. And that awakening is about raising that energy, moving the body, clearing our thoughts, being clear with our emotions. And so consciousness is a factor of being open, of being curious, and being courageous. You know, and you said it so beautifully that we all come with trauma. That's, you know, now sort of a fact of life, a fact of knowingness of life. And then how do we turn to those experiences, look them in the eyes and say, how can I make the best of this? And how do I make meaning and purpose out of this? And that's, I think, where Kundalini Yoga works really, really well. So if we think about past experiences in our life and we say, you know what, why did that happen? How did it happen? Here are the net impacts, you know, it's limiting me somehow in my personal life, in my current life. Then how do I undo those locks? How do I extend myself past the hurt into a place of acceptance, into a place of surrender, and also magnify that to make them our superpowers? And I think that that's really what Kundalini Yoga does. So Kundalini Yoga then is a codified, systematic way of using mantra, sound vibration, breath work, pranayam, movement, relaxation, meditation, in order to move this energy, to spark that energy, to awaken it, to enliven it, to allow it to freely flow, so that we can have those little aha moments. We can have those moments of, that's what happened. This is what it means. This is how it's impacted me. And this is how I can move past it. This is not a quick process. I mean, sometimes there is awarenesses that come very quickly and, you know, we feel gifted or blessed by it. But the journey is, you know, a lifelong journey. And that's where the practice becomes a friend, a confidant, a companion through life. And so for people who like it, we like it a lot. And for people who are exploring, I would say keep on exploring until you find something that really clicks for you. And be there in that practice, dedicate some time to it, and notice what happens. Journal your experience, dive in. And I think really it's about a test of faith and trust, you know, trusting the process, knowing that you've arrived into this conversation with a reason. You didn't just accidentally stumble upon this live video or any of my videos, but rather it's calling you. I feel it very, very alive in that way.
So, how is Kundalini Yoga different from any other form of yoga, Salima?
You know, I think this has a lot to do with how it's practiced. So there's a set system of practice, and so the class has a particular formula to it. So we always start with a mantra to tune in. There's warm-up exercises, there's a kriya, and a relaxation and meditation. I mentioned that before. The kriyas, the physical asanas, are a set series of movements. So the teacher, the modern teacher, is not, there's no performance there. It's all coded. It's like following a recipe. So there's a certain skill in being a baker and saying, okay, I know how long to sift these ingredients together. And then I know that I have to wait for the oven to be ready, and then I put it in. You know, there's a certain formula to that. And so Kundalini Yoga is like that. So the
There is a prescribed format to the whole thing.
That's right. So there's the science of the practice. Do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, and this is the outcome. And then as a teacher, there's an incredible room for artistry and weaving in experiences, because the two have to go together. Yoga is part science, part art. And that's where it becomes really interesting. So the science has been set, and as a teacher and as a student, you get to participate in your teacher's creation of that experience.
So it is different for every student, or it is, I mean, can you customize it? So are there practices that are specific to the specific needs of a student, or it can be generalized for everyone?
Oh, yes. Okay. So, you know, to answer that specifically, we have to think about, or the way I think about Kundalini Yoga is that it is like a medicine. It's a therapy unto itself. And it is so specific in the sense that there are kriyas for anxiety, there are kriyas for depression, there's kriyas for clearing childhood trauma, past karmas, there's physical healing techniques for diabetes, for inflammation, for headaches. And so it's very, very specific. It's not a generalized practice. It can be very specific. And then there are also practices like creating opportunity or adjusting the radiance of a being or feeling more confident or more courageous or more prosperous. And so everything has a specific outcome. And of course, it can be applied generally. You know, so for example, I can teach a kriya about anxiety, knowing full well that out of a group of 20 or 30 or 100, 99% of people have been impacted, if not themselves personally, then someone in their realm has had this experience, and getting a little closer to it through the kriya is such a powerful way to address those things. And so I think of it very much like a medicine.
So when you say the word kriya, what do you mean?
A kriya is a term that refers to complete actions. And so the kriyas are set specific series of movements. Sometimes it's a set series of mudras or meditative forms that are prescriptive. In other words, here's how it's written, this is how it's done, this is how it's taught, and this is how it's practiced. So kriya means complete set of actions.
And when you said that Kundalini Yoga has, come from a Sikh religion, but has it not, I've also read about it, has it not come from, like you said, it's originally mentioned in the Hatha Yoga Pradipika. So is it not from Kashmir Shaivism also? Because there are school of thoughts that Kundalini Yoga is another term to consciousness, like you said, right? And consciousness is the Prakriti part of it, the feminine part of the consciousness, right?
Yes, thank you.
So, yeah, so this is what Kashmir Shaivism talks about, and they refer to it as Ma Kundalini or Mother Kundalini.
Yes.
So then how is the Sikh religion related to Kashmir Shaivism? I mean, I'm a little so I'm going back to the first question, but just for my understanding, and people should also know how did it kind of originate and what is it that they're looking for.
That's right.
Trying to.
I really love that you brought up that the Kundalini energy itself is the divine feminine. And in that way, it is, we see this now mirrored throughout the world, where the divine feminine is starting to make a very significant move forward. We see that particularly, I mean, I can only speak to what's happening here in the West, where women embodied people are saying, those pathways that we have been set in front of us, girls must be nice, we must get married, we must have children, a lot of that is now starting to be released. Like that's not what being a woman is all about. That's not what being feminine is even all about. And testing the masculine in that sense as well. So thank you for raising that. I think that's a big reason why there's curiosity about Kundalini Yoga now. So back to your question about origins, I think of lots of yoga has been fused, influenced by, derived from, little spice mixed from here and a little dash of this. And so I think you're absolutely right that there are schools and traditions that have influenced how it's come to be. The language itself is coming from the Sikh tradition. So I think that that's where the fusion has happened. So here it's originated in India with all the melting pot of what India has to represent in terms of philosophy, ethos, religion, spirituality, environment, atmosphere, culture, and then landed in the Punjab and in the Sikh faith, and then moved over here to the West. And so in that journey, there's so many things that have happened. Colonization happened. Translations have happened from Gurmukhi to English. And in there, I hope I've answered your question, but in there is this body of work now that's called Kundalini Yoga. And now as modern teachers, we have the access to science as well, the polyvagal theory. We have ideas of feminist consciousness. We have ideas of spirituality coming from many traditions, Buddhism, for example, Hinduism, for example, Christianity, for example. And all of these things have kind of spiced it to be what it is now. So it's hard for me personally to talk about 10,000 years of history, but you're absolutely right that it's been fused with lots of different influences. And here we are with this codified practice now.
Okay. So what is the goal of Kundalini Yoga? So typically, if you see, now yoga has been kind of made to believe that it's more of asana practice or pranayama practice. And people have actually forgotten that yoga has 8 limbs to it, Ashtanga Yoga,
Yes.
right? So it starts with personal conduct, how you conduct yourself, what kind of asana. So there's a lot of discipline that needs to come into a human being before even a very, very beautiful practice like yoga or an auspicious practice like yoga can be even attempted. It's something that I personally believe. Like if you're not true to yourself, if you're not true to your neighbor, if you're not true to your family, if you're not honest in your transactions and in your relationship, then you cannot be really honest in your own conduct when you're performing asanas, because you will just begin to lie to yourself and the body will not allow that, right? So like you said, there's so much more that you realize in a simple forward folding practice, right? If you're not honest to yourself, you would not even try to listen to what the body is trying to say, right? So the entire purpose of practicing yoga is moot, right? So what is the goal? I mean, yoga has got diluted is something that I have personally witnessed also. It has all been made to believe that it's about how fancy the posture can look, how, what level of difficulty of the posture can you perform, right?
Yes.
Is equivalent to how evolved or how enlightened yogi you are, right? Which is a myth, I strongly believe. A simple seated practice where you're quietly seated for about 10 minutes itself can raise your consciousness levels to no other, right? So, in your opinion, what is the goal of yoga, or specifically Kundalini Yoga in this case?
Yeah. So you're in India, I'm here in Toronto, Canada, and I think that our experiences are same. Across the world, we are seeing very similar, if not just seeing it, but it has been established as just physical asana. And we, as indigenous teachers, now it's almost up to us to reclaim all those other limbs and to say, this is beyond a physical, this is a spiritual practice, this is an emotional, mental, experiential. And so we can't just read about it, you actually have to do it. And you can't just do it just, by sitting down on your mat and doing it, but actually to be that being everywhere and to bring the teachings everywhere. So I think this is where we are headed next, I think, in the world of yoga, is to remember that it's a lifestyle as much as it is a class. It's a life class, actually. And so I agree with you. So the idea behind Kundalini Yoga is exactly what you said. It's the awakening of that awareness. And so we're not just, Kundalini Yoga isn't particularly Instagrammable. It's not beautifully, there's not particularly hard postures in it. You don't need a lot of flexibility. You don't need a lot of mobility. In fact, the practice that we're going to do at the end of today, and I hope everybody stays for that, is very simple, takes less than a minute. And it's for us busy people who want mental, emotional, spiritual presence in our life. And I think that's the benefit. Because I want to just say this, that safety isn't just the lack of threat. Safety is a feeling of connection. And that connectivity isn't just about the people around us, but how do I feel held by the universe itself, by God itself, by all that is, by the oneness, by the Creator. So when we feel connected, it's much easier to navigate. We're inspired. We're guided. We are protected, and I know that even when I'm having a terrible day, I know that there's some purpose and meaning to it, and I just need to remember the temporariness of all of it. So that's the benefits that have, that's the purpose for me, is that it's a spiritual connection. It has replaced religion in many ways, in terms of community, in terms of connection, in terms of a codified way of showing up. And that's what I love about it. And that's where I teach from, is how do we help each other feel safe and connected?
So, can we say that Kundalini Yoga is helps you kind of not only raise your consciousness but also connect with yourself faster than any other form of yoga?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get competitive about it, but I think it does work really quickly. And one of the foundational mantras in Kundalini Yoga is Satnam. Truth is my name. Truth is there's only one. Truth is there no separation. And you chant that, 1, 2, 3, 20, 30, 40, 100,000 times, and all of a sudden, it's you can't unsee that truth. You can't operate against it. It becomes very painful and very difficult to keep denying our greatness, or denying the truth of who we are, or the kind of relationships that we want, or the work that we want to do. It's very difficult to hold all that back. It's difficult to hold back a flower from blossoming. We know that. Its job is to blossom. And so, while I don't want to get into the competitiveness of it, I think it works really well. I mean, I love that I can sit down, do a practice, and stand up feeling different.
So it's a subtler practice than Hatha Yoga, or although Kundalini Yoga is a part of Hatha Yoga, I believe, but is it a more subtler form of practice than the other asana practice that typically people do?
No, not necessarily. There are some, the good news is that there's no downward dog, and the bad news is that there's no downward dog. And so we kind of I say that to, get a laugh from my, from my students, but also to say that your expectations can soften, because what you think of when you hear the word yoga is actually very different. A Kundalini Yoga practice can be physical. There can be running on the spot. There can be jumping jacks. There can be all that. And then there can be mudras and mantras and sound that are just as effective. And I think you mentioned that, when you consider the 8 limbs of yoga, it's not one that is more potent or more powerful, but rather, how do we bring all of that together? And it's in the offering of mantra, meditation, breath work, and asana that we have this powerful effect. And I think Hatha Yoga started that way too. It's just been, those other nuggets have been stripped away for lots of, contemporary Judeo-Christian reasons. Like, let's remove the indigenous practices. Let's make it about fitness. And as a result, you don't get that full experience. You get a great movement class. You get a great connection with other people potentially in the room. But then the spiritual elements and the self-regulating elements, self-awareness that could be at a 10 is maybe at a 5, 6, 7.
So what I would like to add here is, you may perform any form of yoga. As long as you remain consistent with it, you will reach there, right? So whether it is Kundalini Yoga, or a physical form of yoga, or Iyengar Yoga, or Kriya Yoga, or, there are many other forms of yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, and so this is what I have come to believe. What I also feel is, typically people may start at a very, very physical level of practicing asanas, right? And believing it that this is what yoga is. But eventually, if you're serious about the science, and you begin to go deeper into the practice, you realize that there is much more to yoga than standing on your head, right?
Yes.
So I mean, this I'm talking about from my own experience of about 8 to 10 years of practice, where, consistently doing the same thing every day, again and again, and you reach deeper levels of understanding in the same posture. 5 years back, you would be doing a headstand and not realizing you're just struggling to be in the posture. Right? And 5 years later, you realize you're comfortable, and there are different levels of neuroplasticities that have been developed, neuro pathways that have been developed. You're able to go beyond that posture and begin to see who you truly are, which is what the purpose of yoga is at the end of it.
Yeah.
Yes, I do believe that Kundalini Yoga is way more subtler, but even more powerful if you are carved for it. You know, there are people who find it difficult to stay in the posture and do a repetitive practice because it forces them to see inwards, right?
Oof.
Sitting
Yeah,
still doesn't come very, very naturally,
that's
isn't it?
right.
So that is leading me to the next question that Healing Elements is asking: is it difficult or a dangerous form of yoga?
Okay. Okay, so difficult is a relative question. You know, what's difficult for me is maybe very simple for you. Um, I do want to just track back, okay? That the physical form of asana, whether it's Kundalini Yoga or Hatha Yoga, or is a preparation of body, and so when the body is been moved and calm and relaxed, then you can focus your mind. And so meditation without asana is much more challenging. And so you're right. So the entryway, if the entryway is a little bit more physically oriented, great. Understand, do the self-regulation, know when you're stressed, know when you're tense, and then get that first layer of knowingness under your belt. And then, as you rightly said, you travel through the practice with much more awareness and knowingness about, now I'm calm, now I can focus. And that's true of many practices, Tai Chi, dance, you name it. Okay, so is it difficult or is it and or dangerous? I think there is a kriya for everybody. If you take a look at my YouTube channel, Yoga Vision Online on YouTube, there are some practices that are physically energizing. There are lots of movements, and others that are more meditative. Still movement, but more meditative. And I tend to teach in that style anyway. I'm not looking for big hype. I'm looking for calm and relaxed and gentle and focused and accessible. That's what I'm doing on YouTube. And then so you can find there's all kinds of difficulty levels. And I'll say it again, that, you know, sometimes Kundalini Yoga holds postures like this for 11 minutes. And while that doesn't look difficult, you try minute number 2 and then minute number 3, and then all of a sudden, oh, actually, that's really tough. And it's about cultivating self-love, for example. And self-love is not an easy thing to cultivate. So I think symbolically, the practice does meet you where you are. Where you need to be challenged, that's where it meets you. Where you need ease and grace, that's where it meets you. Okay, so that's how I want to answer that. Is it difficult? Secondly, is it dangerous? This is probably one of my most favorite questions, and I have learned to develop more patience around answering it. Because if you Google Kundalini, you start to trip off into a very interesting rabbit hole of scary experiences, teachers talking about it being very dangerous and too potent. And what I want to say to that is, we're talking about your consciousness, you, individually, your consciousness. What's more dangerous, for you to be unaware, unawake, or for you to be awake in your life, conscious of what's going on, and making intentional, deliberate decisions about how you show up, who you interact with, how you do that, and how you maintain your body, your mind, your spirit, your family, your work, and all the ethos that you were talking about before. What's more dangerous? If we lie to ourselves, we put our blinders on and say, it's all about me, I don't care who's suffering across the world, or we open our hearts and we open our minds and we say, we're in it together. And so that's how I want to answer that question about dangerous. So it's not dangerous in the way of, if you cross the road and you don't look around, you might get hit by a car. It's not that kind of danger. It's the danger of what we don't know. It's the danger of what we're unwilling to see.
But Salima, is it not true that, you know, when you practice, I'm speaking from my own experience, and even Ruby's asking that question, Like, can something go wrong if not followed as per the prescribed steps? Or is there any preparation that one should do to follow a certain routine before being ready for Kundalini Yoga? So, like you said, if you're not aware, if you're not at a point where your awareness is of some level, right? So, people who approach Kundalini Yoga, repetitive movements, like when I started practicing some of the movements that were taught to me, and if I was not able to contain the energy, and if I'm not aware of the energy that has got triggered inside me, it, you know, it it sometimes can create irritability levels in you, right? If you don't really are aware of it, right? If you're aware of it, you can contain it, you can understand it, you can introspect about it, and you can kind of be guided by an informed teacher, right? But there is a trend. People, I mean, people like to do newer stuff, right? So they look on YouTube or something, Kundalini Yoga, they start practicing, and then if they're not strong enough to contain the energy, then what?
That's not been my, it's not been my experience. And I've been teaching for almost 20 years now. It's not been my experience that people have these kind of negative experiences with Kundalini Yoga. So I want to break this down a little bit more. We started with the concept that everybody is encountering trauma. And oftentimes trauma will show up in a mental breakdown, a psychotic breakdown, a spiritual breakdown, a depression, panic attacks. Like, there are ways that trauma shows up that are part of the human psyche. And those experiences are very different from gently, consistently, steadily awakening within ourselves. That's very different. And so I just want to make sure that that's clear. Kundalini Yoga is a systemized way. So we sit down with an intention. What do I need to know? What is it that I need to know about myself? And I think that, yeah, there are times where you sit down for a practice and you feel irritable when you stand up. And yeah, there's something that has arisen, because this is in our neural pathways. And when we start to redefine our neural pathways, then there's going to be resistance. I don't want to do that. Or that might be looking at me in the face and I'm wanting to avoid conflict, or I'm too scared, or I'm, just don't want to. And so we end up in a block. And my teacher would always say, you can either do yoga or be unhappy. One of them has to go. And so generally I find when people are not ready to meet themselves in the mirror, then they will get distracted from the practice. But for those who are interested in, like, who am I? What am I here for? How can I make this better? What don't I know? Then the practice is like, woo, this becomes like dessert. It's delicious. And even the tough spots of meeting ourselves in the mirror becomes a curiosity, becomes a project of introspection, just like you said. So I want to be really careful that it doesn't get positioned like it's too much for people, or only certain people can, or it's only for the elevated. It's not. It's for all ages and stages of life. My particular mission is, I want to teach, if you are not flexible, come and do Kundalini Yoga. If you are not very mobile, you can do it from a chair. You don't have to be already a worldly enlightened person to sit down and have a good experience. So that's the message that I want to convey there. It's for everybody. And what you meet about yourself is specific to you. And what I noticed amongst all my students is they stop being so self-centered. The most boring mantra in the world, me, 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 me. And when we get past that, like, it's not just about me. I have a family, I have neighbors, I have a community, I have a world to be part of. Then we live more expansively. And so I want this, rather than the fear, to be captivating people and preventing them, but actually, what is the excitement? What can I do that is going to make me a more expansive version of myself. So let's focus there.
All right. So Ruby is asking also, is there a way to understand whether one's Kundalini is awakening?
Yeah, yeah. You stop getting angry when you're in traffic. You stop yelling at your kids whenever they're laughing. You realize when you're full and you stop eating. You realize you're tired and you go to bed. That's awakening. Let's not think about it like, oh, all the truth of the universe
All
is
the mystical stuff.
Yeah, let's look at what makes day-to-day life really stressful. It's when we get upset and angry about the things that are going on around us, which are daily irritations. And starting to be like, you know what? Not my problem, not my situation. I don't have to get involved in that. That's Kundalini, that's consciousness. Where do you want to put your energy? That's consciousness. So, I do appreciate, like, Kundalini sounds like, oh, I got to make something rise, or I'm all knowing when I awaken, and that's the purpose of it all. And I think actually it's to have a peaceful life. And peaceful life means you manage your energy properly.
That's beautiful.
I know it's controversial in many ways, that awakening is an event, and I like to think of it as a process, as a slow unfolding of that flower that is bound to blossom. And what we're doing is facilitating that through the practice.
So is it, I was also reading about it, that it requires a guru's grace to awaken one's Kundalini.
Yeah.
How true is that?
No, it's self-initiated. It's you have to have the desire to awaken yourself. It's not me. I'm a teacher for sure. And I've lived a certain amount of time in this body, and I've been teaching for a long time. So I'm cultivated a good body of knowledge and awareness. And I can't force anyone to wake up or shift their habits or to do something differently. I can't force that. I can't initiate that for anybody. You have to be the one saying, you know what, it's not feeling great. I'm not feeling great. I know I have vast potential within myself, and I'm not living that way. And so I think that that's the journey. So yes, finding a teacher who's skilled, who you like to listen to, who's facilitating in a way that is allowing you to get comfortable, and that you feel like, yeah, I trust that knowledge. That knowledge seems genuine to me. Those are important pieces. That's true of any teacher in any discipline. If somebody's racist, you don't necessarily want to go and learn stuff from them, because there's a whole filter that has to happen. And so I would say the same thing in a yoga class, is that you want a teacher who you trust, who you feel connected to. Whether it's live or it's online, the transmission is there. That connectivity is there. Whether it's molecular or it's electrical impulses, it's still there. And so the teacher is necessary to arouse curiosity, to soothe, to uplift, to help, to support, to guide, but not to initiate.
Okay. So, one beautiful trip, says Salima, that is the most beautiful explanation of how do I know my Kundalini is awakening I have ever heard. So yeah, it was quite beautiful and interesting. So a lot of people tend to make about, a lot of mystical stuff around these things, because anything that you don't know, you tend to, just go very, very mystical about it. But yoga is all about just truly knowing yourself, it's the union with your own self. And I mean, it's as simple as that, and it can get as complicated as that. It all depends on how you make sense out of the whole thing, right?
Very much.
So yeah, that is quite interesting. So would you like to, take us through a small practice, Salima?
Yes, I would love to. And, the one that I chose today is called 10 Steps to Peace. And
10 steps?
10 steps,
Sorry?
10 steps to peace.
Okay.
Okay. So this is going to take maybe a minute, maybe a little bit less. And that's the power of Kundalini Yoga, is that it can be done anywhere and everywhere. And we're going to use breath work. So simple inhale, simple exhale. We'll use a mantra. The mantra is Wahe Guru. So Wahe Guru is the mantra of ecstasy. It comes from the Sikh faith, inspired by, and we're going to use eye movements. Okay. So we're just going to do a practice round. So as you chant Wa, and Namrata, if you would be my guinea pig, my demonstrator. So as you chant Wa, look to the left, your left eye.
Okay.
A to the left, and Guru
To the right.
to the tip of the nose. So Wa, Hey, Guru. Wa,
Okay.
Hey, Guru. Okay, can you do that? Wa, Hey, Guru.
All right.
Okay, so go ahead.
Wa He Guru.
Perfect.
Wa He Guru.
Okay.
Yeah?
Yep, perfect.
How long do you want us to?
So just hang on there. There's more instruction, but let me just,
Okay.
I just wanted to introduce the ideas behind it. So when we move our eyes, we are actually activating different parts of our brain. And this is the science of yoga. And the mantra, the sound vibration, Vaheguru, is a mantra of ecstasy, of union, of connection. And so now we're bringing these two aspects together, the science and the sound, in order to clear a memory, clear an event. All right, so ask all of you who have tuned in today, and thank you very much for listening to this conversation. I'd like you to think about a small event that might have happened to you. So don't pick your biggest trauma, okay? Pick something simple. Maybe you got angry in traffic. Maybe you knocked over your coffee cup. Something very simple that you kind of, it set off a little tone of your day. Don't pick the deepest thing. Pick something light and small, and you can actually feel how this can lighten it, okay? So close your eyes now. Take a few breaths, inhaling and exhaling through the nose, gently and completely. Soften your belly so that you can breathe deeply. Relax your shoulders. And just start to repeat that mantra in your mind. I just want to warm up the sound vibration inside of you. This is not the meditation just yet. We're doing preparatory work. So, Va, He, Guru. Just say it to yourself a few times silently so that you get used to the sound inside of yourself. We're here for just about 30 seconds. And as you do this now gently, start to, as you chant Wa, look to your right eye. Hey, look to your left eye. And Guru, focus on the tip of your nose. Just do that lightly to get ready for the practice itself. Okay, let's begin now. Take a deep inhale and remember that encounter, that memory, something that happened to you. So holding the breath, now mentally to look to the right, Wa, to the left, Hey, to the tip of the nose, Guru. Exhale. Inhale very deeply and visualize that experience. Relive that actual experience. Holding the breath. And now as you exhale, Wa to the right, Hey to the left, Guru to the tip of the nose. Inhale very deeply and reverse that encounter. So if you got angry with somebody or something happened with another person, or imagine it from the coffee cup's point of view, holding the breath, relive it from the other person's or the other entity's experience. And now as you exhale, Wa to the right, Hey to the left, Guru to the tip of the nose. 2 more rounds. Inhale very deeply, hold the breath, and forgive that experience totally. Let it go, release it, forgive, see yourself, see the other person, the coffee cup, whatever it was, and forgive deeply and completely. Now with your exhale, Wa to the right, Hey to the left, Guru to the tip of the nose. One more time. Take a deep inhale. And now fully and completely release. Just that whole memory, that whole situation, release it, let it go, let the universe take care of it. Know that it's in capable hands. Know that there was learning for you to be had. And now we are coming to completion. And last time, exhale the breath. And Wa to the right, He to the left, Guru to the tip of the nose. Stay here for a moment, relax your eyes, and just sit with that. Try not to revisit any part of what we just did. Just allow yourself to be present, to be listening, to be hearing all the sounds around you, the voice inside of yourself. Good. And then inhale very deeply, squeeze, tense, hold all of your muscles. We're just clearing that energy now. Squeeze, tense, hold. And then through the mouth, let it go, cannon breath. Good. 2 more times. Inhale, squeeze, tense, hold all the muscles. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. Hold, hold, hold. Tense, tense, tense. And let it go through the mouth powerfully. And then 1 more time. Inhale very deeply. Squeeze, tense, hold all of your muscles. Squeeze, tense, hold. And this is the last one, final one. Let it go. Awesome. Give yourself a little shake. Shake, shake, shake. Shake, shake, shake. Shake, shake, shake. Good. And relax.
So Salima, I could actually feel compassion for the person who irritated me in that episode, you know. So that was quite interesting.
Yeah.
And
Okay, so just pause there for a second. I received the compliment, and I want to say that that's your Kundalini. That is your awakening. That is your opportunity to exist spiritually in that capacity. That's Kundalini.
interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Thank you for this time. Thank you so much
So thank you
for
so much. So, I think so. Yes, even I got confused about this. So that people, if they want to go back practicing to something as beautiful and simple that you said in the beginning, you said look to your left when you said "wa" and look to your right when you say "hey."
so
And then while you were instructing, you said the other way around. Ruby is also saying the same thing.
okay,
So
to the right. So I'm mirroring you. So you're going to see me reverse, but this is my right hand. Wa, hey, guru, guru. Wa, hey, guru.
Guru.
Wa,
And should the eyes be
yeah,
closed or should they be
it
open?
should be closed. When we close our eyes, we hold our spiritual energy inward. The eyes, 10% of our energy of our entire body actually goes through the eyes. And so that's why in a meditative practice, for the most part, that's why we close our eyes, to hold the energy in, to allow, that extra 10%, think about 10 extra percent being used for healing, for transformation, for consciousness, for awareness. It's a really big deal. And also when we open our eyes, we start looking around, we start, oh, I have to make dinner soon, oh, I have to, my thing is a mess over there. So this is the purpose also, is to minimize distraction.
So Ruby's experience is I just let go of that episode.
But hey, there's
So
your
that
Kundalini. There's your Kundalini. Okay. So I know that I said something controversial, that, we have been taught, or we have learned, that Kundalini is this big event. And I think it's really important to remember that we can have the tiny, small, little things, awarenesses, awakenings that we have every day, all throughout the day, is spiritual energy. And so we don't have to aim for something really out of our league that feels dangerous. Am I ready? No. We don't start driving a car just like, we don't go on the highway as soon as we start learning to drive. We take it slowly, we go out the driveway, we take small little roads. We don't go right to the highway after day 1 of driving. We don't do that. And so I want us also to remember that our consciousness is well within our realm of control, and that what we open ourselves to on a daily basis is what we're ready and prepared to do. So if the idea of Kundalini scares you, don't do it. That's not my place to say, go check it out. It's not terrible what you think. It's to say, when you're ready, when you feel like you can recognize your intuitive moments, when you recognize your ability to make a different kind of decision, that's a good place to say, yeah, Kundalini Yoga is important for me. I'm waking up and I need support.
True.
Yeah.
So, Ruby, yes, Va is right and Hey is left. So she's still getting confused about it. I'm going to write that in the description while I describe when I'm posting this live episode.
Sure.
So the small practice can be written down and people can go back to it practicing and make a routine out of it to let go of situations that have really stirred you up. So then basically we can find a space to let it go and create compassion towards something that has unsettled us in the past.
Yes, absolutely.
So
And you start with small things, and then as you build your muscle, as you recognize the power of what this tiny little practice has to offer, you can widen that to, you know, the more intense things, the things that you've been holding for a longer period of time. So, you know, step by step. My YouTube channel, it's actually on my YouTube channel. It's called 10 Steps to Peace. And you'll find that at Yoga Vision online on YouTube. Thank you to 38,000 subscribers. Thank you for the people who are watching on a daily. You warm my heart. You inspire me to keep going. And it's conversations like this, I think, where we're able to go a little bit more distance with many more people and, you know, help the awakened life.
thank you so much for being with us, Salima. It's been absolute pleasure to have you. It's like, people who are willing to share their insights and, debunk the myths around, ancient wisdom that India has been carrying, for centuries. So it's very, very important that platforms as such these where, mentors choose to be here and speak about it, where people are well informed and they can take informed decisions about how they want to grow in their consciousness, right? At the end of it, we are spiritual beings having human experiences. So how we want to create our awareness, how we want to live this life with meaning and purpose is a path that you need to choose. And this is one platform at Awaken Life where we keep bringing in mentors, who have been living this path, not only preaching, they've been actually living and practicing it. So understanding things straight from them gives us a very deep insight into what is it that I want to go into, what suits me. Like Salima clearly said, if Kundalini scares you, then don't go, right? But if it feels inviting, if you think you can approach it with the guidance of the right guru, then by all means choose, whatever helps you to live a life which is full of purpose and meaning, right? So thank you so much for choosing this platform, Awaken Life, Salima. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah.
And I hope to do many more lives with you in understanding Kundalini.
Yeah.
And it's, so a lot of myths were, dissolved for me,
Okay.
and I got a deeper understanding of how any form of yoga can, basically help you elevate your awareness. And Kundalini by that self is easy, is approachable. It can be done anywhere, and it doesn't really have to be all mystical about it.
Yeah,
Right?
it's
So
very scientific and very practical.
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
that's the kind of person I am. I want to just jump off of one thing that you said that I think is so important, and that is India has been, not just as a country, but as a embodiment of people, wisdom keepers for generations and generations and generations. And, the fact that we're here standing, talking about it, that it has survived all the cultural influences, all the secrecy, all the sequestering, all of the things that have happened over time. The fact that it's existing tells us something, that it's time tested, and that as long as human beings have been on the planet, we have been desiring for purpose. We've been desiring for connection. And so it's through wisdom keepers like you who are bringing communities together that really, this is where it becomes impactful. Because though you and I don't really know each other, we share many commonalities. And it's those bridges that we want to continue to grow, or I want to continue to grow. So I'm going to invite you onto my YouTube channel in the near future, and then we'll have a conversation from your perspective, which I'm very curious about. So thank you. I appreciate
Thank you so much, Salima, and we'll see each other
it. Okay.
soon. Thank you, everyone, for signing
Bye.
in, and we shall see you again with yet another live next week. All right.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody. Bye
Bye-bye.
for now.